on that. Turn that eye.
Turn it off.
Larry? No, sorry.
Here we go. Here we go. Thank you.
I think you should have that background music.
I think what we need to do is put a battery in that clock. That's what I get for using the wrong clock.
Larry, can
Oh.
I right here so we can talk?
So you need to get on the, grab the iPad and see.
I will.
Okay.
Now you need a table.
I know.
You want that one?
What do you think, guys? It's almost a full minute into it. Let's see what we can do here.
No, I'll bend over. It's right there. I got over.
We got settings. What's in our settings? Camera. Nope, we're good there. We'll see if somebody.
Now it says.
Hey, hey! It went out. Good, 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 good.
What's in my drawers live stream? I don't know that I want to know what's in your drawers.
You better.
Did you hear that? How do I do it? Go to YouTube?
Yep. Two comments already. Look at that.
Really?
Yep. Let's see what
Where
that's
are
all
you?
about. Here we go.
Where
It's
are
Matt and Jason.
you? Where are you?
Gotta go there. What do you say, guys?
Do I go to home? Where do I go to?
Go to YouTube or look up mine. Nick A is on.
Yay.
All right. Okay, guys, let's get some. Hey, you might want to volume it down. Okay, guys, let's get some. Hey, you might want to. Here we go.
There we go.
All right, guys. So first and foremost, hopefully everybody is doing okay. This tends to get. Oh, I have to look. Jason, what was GC? What'd you say it was? And I'll keep going. Anyway, well, so hopefully everybody's okay, and that that this thing really hasn't taken over anybody. I will say down here in Southern Ohio that we've been extraordinarily fortunate, particularly in our county alone. We've only had one documented case of it, and that person is already recovered. And we're like this bubble. And of course, those of you who know me, I also have a job outside of here. And I have these guys, I have about 50, 60 guys that report to me. And I keep telling them that, this is about the first time I am so happy to be a redneck. So it's really that kind of funny.
I was called a hillbilly today.
And so Jason, nope, GC is not General Certificate of Education. So keep trying. All right. So again, it's what's in my drawers, right? And I tell you what, we're going to talk about some club fitting in the midst of all this, but I am here to tell you, I opened up a drawer I haven't opened up in a while, and there was some pretty amazing stuff in there. And we're just going to hit it right out of the park right here. Check this guy out.
It's like 5 steps.
Woodwoods. I have got a box of these guys, and not just the ones, but the 3s and the 5s. These things are great. Now, for those, I've talked to some guys at Golf Works, and they may or may not get on, but this is what you used to get when you would go through that. So it would give you the loft, the lie, the face angle, whether it was a hook or a slice, open or closed, right? Bulge and roll, and then the bore size. Check that bore size out. 277, right? That stuff's not even made anymore, right? And what they're talking about is that. Okay, and you notice how it's not necessarily, that one's one of the better ones. They're not necessarily in round. So what I know about these guys, these were just coming out of vogue when I started. And what, people were staining and sealing and doing all kinds of stuff with this. And they were also putting in what was the disc, and the discs were really all the rage. It's different having different discs, and you would put that right in there. All right, you would put that right in there. So what you would do is once you got this all set up, you would put lead or any kind of glue or something along that lines in order for you to do swing weighting. And then because at this time you didn't bend this thing, right? This was cut and shaved in order to get to the lie angle that you wanted. And that was you want to talk about custom ordering, boom, right there. That's what you got. And then they're talking about bulge and roll, right? They're talking about the circumference of the face here, and then the circumference of the face like that there, the bulge and roll. And they're using numbers of 14 and 16 on a 5, right? And it used to be, if you look, you can actually see the curvature. Now that's almost gone now, right? Because they still have them in the 5s and the drivers and stuff, but the numbers they're using are just so big. They're 18, 20 inches. They're just huge, and it gives them that appearance that they're flat. Okay, and that's the reason why it's like this. But this is just so classic. 277. I actually found 2 shafts that these might actually go into. And they were burnished, meaning that they were heated up in the tip, because that was what you did in the day. In order to pull them out of the wood, you heated up this rod that was 4 foot long, and you would run it down the shaft and let it sit there against the metal, and hopefully heat it up, and then pull out the shaft that way. Now, from what I've been told, I've never done it, that when you had steel, because that was the only thing that they had in the day, that if you wanted it bent one way or to another, what they would virtually do is put it in a door jamb and bend the shaft. Just some of the things that you had to do in the day. It was really, really cool. So not only do I have a 1, but I have a 3 and a 5, and I basically got a whole box. To kind of go over some specs now, keeping in mind this is the 3 wood. The 3 wood was 16 degrees, 16, right, with a 56-degree lie. This was open 2 degrees, so this was a player's club, and still the bore. The driver, you're going to love this one. The driver was 13 degrees, and it was a solid 53-degree lie angle and a straight up face angle. So the technology that was actually being used in the day to make this guy, the face was just absolutely amazing. So it was pretty good, right? And that's the kind of stuff I found. I think I actually bought these things to do a couple of things, to be either pin holders once I finished them, or I was going to cut a groove across the top and mount them and use them as business card holders. And I don't know if something overcame me and I just couldn't find myself to destroying the head or not. But I got a bunch, so I'm gonna have to figure out something with that, just because I don't want to do that. So how's that lead into fitting? Well, now when we talk about drivers, right, and particularly Matt's a tall guy. You've seen him on some of the videos. I wish I could point to it and make sure, hey, there it is, but this doesn't do that. And he's a taller fella, and average driver lengths around, that when you buy them are 44 and a half, 44 and 3/4. And sorry, Glenn. So anyway, and length is pretty much a primary component in order to make the driver work, or even any of the irons work well. And 9 times out of 10, the things are too long, right? And so that if nothing else, make sure you have the right length. That way you make so much better contact and really go from there. Okay. All right. This has been quite the treasure trove of things that I found, and I really, it's been almost therapeutic. All right. So you guys remember these Victory grips, right? These are original. The original Victory grips. These things, I can't tell you how old they are, but these are the ladies' grips, the pink ones. All right, 50. They even say 56 core on the inside of them, and I've had them wrapped in a plastic bag and in the dark, and they are still supple, not cracking, not doing anything, just absolutely phenomenal. So if any of you guys have a lady golfer or a junior golfer that likes pink, let me know. I have at least enough to do a set of irons for sure. All right, we want to go old school. You guys remember? I'm sure some of you guys remember these. Look at that, the blue. This isn't black. That's blue. The blue golf prides, and I believe these are the smaller ones as well. Maybe even junior grips. And again, still small. All right, so when we talk about this, we're talking about grip size, right? And grip size is another very, very important parameter on your golf club. There's another one. And so if you know, the grip size is a catalyst, all right, is a catalyst in things that can happen in the way of doing your swings. You know, they say if it's too small, it'll make a hook. If it's too big, it'll make a slice. No, it doesn't make it, but it is a catalyst. It can promote that kind of thing. And that's the reason why it's important not to fit the backhand, but the front hand as well, because of the way different people will grab it. So if you're interlocking or or overlapping, or even this one right here, this is the one that gets most people, because when you get to here, and most people don't set them in the fingers, they set them in the palms. And that way the grip's got to be bigger. Okay, for you guys that, there you go. Originals, man. Originals. Now I will tell you, you can tell they're originals because they have the shiny black backside on them. All right. And so what happened here? Did I buy these? No. So when I opened my doors in over here in 2006, and this is to tell you how long I've had them, and it wasn't 2 weeks, and a guy came in here with a box, and in this box he says, "I hear you're doing club making stuff. Here you go." And I said, "Well, what do you got?" And he just says, "It's all in the box. Don't sweat it. I don't want nothing for it." And turns around and walks back out. Well, I'm chasing him out the door and say, "Hey, is there anything you want for this stuff?" And he says, "No, no." And and all this stuff is in it, and it's in excellent shape. So if you guys are looking for that one, all right, last one, and for you guys that are ping lovers, you're going to absolutely dig on this guy. How about this? Holy cow, right? The original Karsten Dyna. They're Dyla grips. Dyla grips from Golf Pride. All right, Dyla grips from Golf Pride. I believe the yellow, now they're all, ping was color coded, and this one has a feel of either a mid or a jumbo. But the idea is that the lines here were for the twisting. They were to go work against the twisting. I had some of these on an old ping black in the I2. Man, they were tough. But I mean, it still has, I wish I could really promote it, but you see how it's not it's not slick, it's not shiny, it's kind of almost rough. That shows how new that is. So, and I got a bunch in there. Holy smokes. I better figure out what to do with those. Maybe I ought to call Ping and ask them whether or not they need something. Alrighty, so let's go through a few of these things. Let's see if I can do this right. There's Matt. Matt loves the Victory grips. Yeah, they are sweet, man. And the new ones are just as good, right? We got Glenn. Is there any way to get my hands on a grip? What? Tell me which one, bud, and we'll talk about it.
Oh, that's cool. How'd you pull that up?
Yeah, it's really cool. Jason, General Certificate of Education. I will just promote this. It's fun to keep it going. GCE, guys. When I told you on that one video, GCE, gross conceptual error. I used to get that quite a bit in nuke school. The instructors would put that, they said GCE, and then they would and then I would get credit because they would say GCE carried forward. And it was from that good. So That was it. We got Rob. He's from Edmonton. All right. Thank you, Rob. Now, I will tell you guys, you want to talk about a, look at here.
Jen, hello.
Sharon, wider soles versus more bouncing irons, difference in turf interactions. That is a great question. We will do that. All right. So, Rob, we're going back. Yeah, it is funny. Want to talk about international. Today has been a significantly international day for me. I answered an email from a guy from Ireland, and he was asking about lofts and lies and spines. Well, that was yesterday, sorry. Today, I answered a question from a guy from Scotland. And it is funny because that at the end of every day, I get just a little bit to get going at the end of the day. And the stuff I was at, the distillery is only 35 miles from his house,
That was today.
that was awesome. Well, after I got done emailing him, I had another fine young gentleman call me from Argentina. So I got to talk to people from all around the world. It is phenomenal what you can learn talking with other people. All right.
Shiny backside?
Yeah. Maybe she does, Kurt. You never know. All righty. So let's go. Let's go back to Sharon. Wider soles versus more bounce in irons. Difference in turf interaction. All right. So a bounce question in general, right? There is bounce and then there is effective bounce. Okay. Bounce in an iron, and I will see if I've got one. I don't have one nearby, but
What do you need?
just an iron head. So anyway, the bounce is basically the measurement of the leading edge versus the top of it. All right, here we go. I'll use a Mizuno head. So it's the difference between the leading edge and how the turf is. That's the actual measured bounce. All right, and the higher the bounce, meaning the less that you get stuck, and that's just how that works. Now, if you're a real divot taker, that may not be enough, and wide soles take up that advantage, right? So if you get something like this, let's see if I can get you there. If you go something like this, but you go wider, you can actually go less bounce and go wider, and you have an effect. The bounce can be effectively the same. Okay, they can be effectively the same. And what does that mean? Well, that means that you don't have to have that leading edge so far up in the air so that you hit a bunch of skull shots, right? You'll hit it thin to be sure, but not a lot of people like doing that. They like the straight on contact. So what it does is it helps you bounce off the turf even more, keeping the bounce low and getting out there. So, it's basically, if you're talking about high bounce options in regular irons versus, say, something like the launch pad in the Wilson setup, or even the Cleveland launcher series, they're both very, very similar in their makeup, and they could do the and so if you're a real bouncer, real slapper of the ground, a wider sole might be exactly where you're at. Now in wedges, the same thing applies, right? But if you're in wedges, it's a bigger deal where you start with the turf that you're in. If you're in fluffy grass or fluffy sand, right, where it's kind of brutal in that second cut kind of stuff, more bounce, wider bounce, in order to, when you get into it, that it bounces you out more. It's like a surfboard riding a wave. It gets you out and it gets you going that direction. If the other is true, if you're in hard pan, or the sand is very hard, right, you don't need as much in order to get the same concept. Now, if you're a guy that really goes and it comes down and it comes down, you're a real hacker, then you might need that, right? So if you're in now let's combine that. So you're this real hacker and you're in hard pan. Well, you went low bounce and high bounce. Well, you split the difference basically, all right? Because you're going to come into it and you take off all that bounce that you were needing from before, because you're coming into this hard pan and you split the difference. And the same for the other way. So Sharon, I hope that helped you out. All righty. Whew, that was a good one. I like that kind of stuff. We're really getting into wedges. I did a lot with did a lot with the guys. In fact, I'm getting ready to talk to the guys from Wilson yet again. But I got to talk to Chris Voshal. He is the R&D guy for Mizuno. There's some more videos coming from him when we did a Zoom conference. Hey, man, dude's a pleasure to talk to. He's really great. So there's a lot of that's coming down the line. All righty.
You see Rob's question, Jim, how do you frequency match a set of taper tips?
All righty. So Rob asks, how do you frequency match a set of taper tips? Honestly, by luck. All right. So the way that you can really do it is, and the way that the guys did it in larger shops was that they would, very much like in the old days, you would have whole buckets of the same length of that particular whatever you wanted to do, and you would weight sort and you would measure in order to make these frequency match sets, and that's what they did. And then they would have them setting in the day. They would have them setting in their piles, and they go, okay, if I wanted a 5.5, boom. If I wanted a stiff, boom. If I wanted a X or an R or whatever, that's what they would do. And that's basically how I do it. Now, there are ways of getting around some of that. It won't be exact. You know, you hear about soft stepping and hard stepping. And what that is if you need to move the frequency down a third of a flex or up a third of a flex, you go and you pull the shaft from below and put it up, or the shaft from above and put it down. From up to down is soft stepping, from down to up is hard stepping. And that's just all that is changing the frequency of that. But the real trick there is sometimes that you will trick the frequency, but all of a sudden you will change the trajectory. So you have to be fairly understanding of what you're doing when you do that. But that's where you go. That's frequency matching. Now, there's other things you can do, like adding a little bit of weight, but you're just tweaking that time frame. And if you've got to add weight in order to change the flex, chances are you're close enough. All right, we got that one. Matt wants to know, what is the lowest lie angle you've ever seen in a putter, driver, and example? So lowest, I'm going to say, if we're talking about lie angle, we mean being flat, right? All right, because now let's talk a little bit about putters. There is an upward amount of that you can only have, right? You can only go to 80 degrees. Why 80 degrees? All right, this is a history lesson here. 80 degrees because in the day back in the Open, there was a guy that was putting like a croquet mallet. He was putting between his legs and had the thing very much upright, and was making it go through there. And they said, that's illegal. You can't do it. Well, the guy took it as a challenge, threw that putter out, brought another one in, and putted side saddle, and ended up destroying everybody for the day. It was pretty cool. So the rule came out, it was 80 degrees to prevent being a croquet type putter mallety kind of thing. Now, going the other way, there's really not a lot in the way of what is the lowest you can go. But I have seen, let's just start the average. 70, 72 is average, okay? I've seen as low as 60. And those are guys that are really, really tall, and they push their hands really far down, and then they putt like that. It's not very healthy, because what happens is, even at that, when they do that, the toe is still up and you're putting like that, almost like a Jumbo Ozaki, if you guys remember him. He was a Japanese guy, great golfer, and he dominated the Japanese area. But he did that. He putted with that, but what he did was that the putter face was up so much when he putted this way that it had zero loft. In fact, in a couple of his putters had negative loft because of the way that he was putting. And that's where we go with that one. All right. People, what do see in what?
Pure end shafts. What do you think about pure end
Let's
shafts?
go another one. Warren, I have to look a little bit more on this one, buddy. All right. Peering. What do I think about? It starts up here, and I hate autocorrect too, man. There's bad words that come out of my mouth when that stuff starts doing it. All right, peering. Peering is the actual peering process is done by computer. It is a digital version of what I do when people do, and I'm sure the guy that did peering is going to hate me for this. It is a digital version of what spine and flow accomplishes in an analog. So if you look at your watch and you have this is spine and flow, right? The digitally stuff that's really sweet and cool, that everybody likes looking at nowadays. That's peering. Now, I will say this: it is very, very accurate. It is completely accurate. However, it is still relegated to how you install the shaft into the head, right? They tell you directly at 12 o'clock. In a lot of cases, that's true. Now, I did a set of those just to test my theory because I set, I set mine at 12 o'clock as well, which makes me agree with peering. And I would tweak it. And there are some that at 12 and there are some at 9 o'clock. They're towards the target. So you got to be careful. And if you're off just even a little bit, then all of a sudden you get this, albeit not very much, but it's there. So you got to really make sure that it's in there at that 12 o'clock just right. But yeah, peering is there. Are there other methods to get to the same spots? Absolutely. All righty. What we got here? Hey, Justin, how you doing, bud? All right, let's see. What's he got here? Jim, great seeing you. And you're at the PGA show. Dude, I was absolutely fried. I could hardly talk. Do you have a specialty gauge for measuring loft lie face angles for drivers in the fairways? From Chips Ahoy. Oh, yeah, man. So, yeah, I do. It's called a Loft and Lie Gauge. Now, there are tons of Loft and Lie gauges that you can get. Now, when we talk about getting machines, there's basically only two places to get machines that I'm aware of now. One is the Golf Mechanic, and the other one is Golf Works. All right, and they're almost intermingled in some cases. And it's all what you want to spend. The thing called the green machine. It is what you call it is the standard by which golf club designers will use this thing, and it is just massive. Is akin to the Burr King, and if for those of you guys know what the Burr King is, that is the sanding machine that people use to grind on. This thing is so heavy duty, it's unbelievable. Same thing for the gauge. Now, from a club measuring point of view, do you need that? Probably not. And there's many models that you can use. There's many models that you can use in order to get whichever one that you want. Now, I have one that is what I would call middle of the road, right? Middle of the road. And what that is it has adjustments up and back, side to side, and it tells you about your face angle. And they have some, and I've seen there's some updated version of these from the Golf Mechanic where it's all, mine are in pieces, where this is all one unit and you just get in there. And now they have digital versions of the same, so you don't have to guess if you really wanted to be precise. So that's where I would go with that one. I'd look at either one of them. Well, now there was somebody else up here earlier that was talking about the shipping from the Golf Works looking for a machine. If I find you, anyway, if I don't find you, check out Golf Mechanics, because if you're outside the U.S., he's in Singapore, and he can probably get you something probably a little easier and probably a little cheaper, particularly if you're looking for that.
Somebody from Sweden.
All right, let's see what else we got in here.
Sweden.
I'm going to run down here. Justin, yep, we did that one.
Wants to do what's in the bag.
Sharon says, thank you, you're more than welcome. Kurt, what's the best way to determine the gap distance on your wedge? Well, Kurt, I hate to sound like a bonehead to you, but the best way to determine your gap distance is actually to hit them. All right. Now, the premise is here is that people will go, my dog, what are you doing? Hey, my dog's wanting to go outside. The so gap distances, typically we talk between 4 and 5 degrees between wedges, and gap, yeah, and what we're talking about there is, uh, yeah, and it's really dependent on swing speed. Okay, the higher the swing speed, the smaller the number in that gap can be in order to have that designated. And have that designated, everybody wants a 10-yard gap. You may not need a 10-yard gap. That's the other part, right? You might need, there's the shot that you always have that's got to be 15 yards longer. Well, maybe then that's not it. So you might have wedges that are only 2 degrees apart for those dedicated spots, because a lot of people don't have that second shot with that wedge, that half swing, right? The half pullback or the quarter pullback. And that comes from Pels, David Pels. He's an engineer by trade, and that's how he writes, and it's very dry reading. But that's what that is. All right, this is fun stuff. Can we have what's in the bag? Is that what we're asking, Warren? What's in the bag? Yeah. Uh, what's in the bag? Well, currently right now, I just put a set of Maverick irons in the bag. Now, full disclosure, uh, it's I'm on staff with Callaway. Now, does that stop me from trying other things out? Absolutely not. To the point, there's another video coming out of me making my irons, right? There's a whole long story behind it, but I'm making my irons. I haven't done this in 8 years, and I really like what I'm putting together. I'm just waiting on the grips so we can do that. And I just ordered the wedges, but with this lockdown, I'm not going to see it for another 3 or 4 weeks maybe. I guess we're all depending on how we go back to work, right? But and that was going to be fun because the back of this wedge is it's pristine. It's just basically blank canvas, and we are going to stamp the snot out of this thing, and we're going to have a lot of fun. So it's going to be some fun with that. In wedges, so I'm gaming a Peretti putter, and it is a center shafted mid. It was a belly putter that had a ski pole in it, and I've cut it down to normal, and I put a Garson grip on it. And if you guys don't know Garson, he has a teardrop, so that when you putt, you're putting like this. And I'm digging that thing, man. I've got it. In fact, I got another putter, and it just turned that one into a real gamer as well. I like that. Wedges, I've got a PM grind, and I am probably going to game a T20 from Mizuno. And the reason being is because it's got a lot of heel and toe relief, and I can open it up. And I'm not, being a lefty, I'm not afraid to doing that. There's what that is. In the hybrid section, I'm using Epics, the first generation. I'm kind of a hybrid Nimrod when it comes to that kind of stuff. And I'm using a Maverick driver head, but I'm using an Acra shaft. I'm using the FX 2.0 in red. Very, very nice shaft. And I'm using, and I've regripped them all with the MCC4 pluses in green. So that's what's kind of in the bag right now. And so that's not too bad. All right, let's see what else we've got in here. We've got this one. Have you heard of Golf Instruments House? Yes, I have, Justin. As a matter of fact, I know that they were there. I just don't know if they still exist. They had what was the standard from they had what was the standard for shaft pullers. Very ball bearing, very industrial, very heavy duty. It was awesome. When I was on the tour trailers, that was all anybody had. And it put it in, off it came. It was just that good. Very, very nice. And I don't know where they're at. Very, very pricey, but yeah, it was very, very nice. It was one of those buy one and done, so I was good there. Here we go. Saw you speak with Jumbo Grips, the PGA show. Did you see a benefit of grips that large on golf clubs? Yeah, you know what? There are. I wouldn't say, love the guys at Jumbo Grips. And it's funny because they're mostly stationed out of Indiana, not too far from where we grew up, which is the coincidence. But I think what happened was with the bigger grip phenomenon was that their original the original design was that the bigger grip was to allow you to relax the grip, and when you did that, you would swing faster. And in reality, loose muscles do swing faster. However, when he did a couple of these videos and released it, everybody that was swinging the club was on the average age of around 60. So it automatically became that kind. Well, they've been, it was a great product. And as it turns out, down in this neck of the woods, I got guys that got hands that are just huge. And they're small, or what they call their medium, would fit them normally. And like basketball players, I fit an NBA guy that was from the area, huge hands. And we put that grip in there. And all of a sudden he's not grabbing down. You're able to make a really good swing. So it's one of those, like, the greatest answer in golf is it depends, right? It just depends on how you could do that. But yeah, I mean, now you got Bryson playing them, and so they're getting there. Now, what the best thing they could have done was they went to a new type of grip from the original that they had. That one was kind of slickery, and now the other ones have new colors and new textures. And if in the one that I talked to the guys about that's coming out, that's coming out is uh, a less tapered grip. That seems to be the trend, a less tapered grip, and it won't be as heavy either. So you can have larger, less tapered, lighter grips. If they come out, that's going to be a real deal. And they said sometime in the future, I don't know what that means, but they're talking about a rubber grip as well. So yeah, there you go. All righty. So what else we got here? Can you recommend a shaft that is similar in profile to a Rogue Silver 70-gram range? Well, the Rogue Silver is is still a stout shaft, right? Just a tad friendlier at the bottom. You might look at, in the 70-gram range, Acura makes that FX, will go with the yellow. You might look at the Project X in the same system. You might, and they have what are colors, black for the black, red and yellow, but I think the yellow and the red are going to be discontinued. You might look at the red, right? Somewhere around those lines, but I would certainly check that out. All right, what do we got here? Now this gentleman here is from Sweden. He says, I have a toe droop, 5 degree at impact. Should I get my angle more upright, and how much upright? They are standard. All right, so in every case, even when you got droop, the best way to figure things out is dynamically, right? Do a lie angle test. Now there's always going to be the discussion of which is best to do it, whether hitting off a live board or just hitting off the mat and putting the line on the ball. In reality, either way would work just fine. Specifically if you're taking into account that the thickness of the board. Now there are some people that I've seen done where they will stand you on a piece of plywood and paint the plywood in that area and have you hit off of it and take a look at it. It's kind of ingenious, really. And then look to see where you're at, right? Because toe droop can be impacted by shaft, right? Shaft. And the way that you do that, it could be the shaft bending, it could be your hands letting go because of the weight of the club, and just see how you're impacting the ground. That's what I would look at. But do one dynamically. All right, here we go. What do you think the most popular, what's the most trending or popular shaft you see, and why do you think they're getting a lot of buzz? Well, right now, I would say it's design concepts. And the trend right now that's getting a lot of play is counterweighted shafts, right? If you look, the Riptide has got a counterweighted shaft. The Acura and the TZ line's got a counterweighted shaft. VA Composites has got a counterweighted shaft. And everybody's got a counterweighted shaft. In the day, UST it was a Harmon line from the Harmon brothers, the teachers, and they had a counterbalance shaft, which was spectacular. And what they're probably doing is kind of trying to recreate that. Now, what is counterbalancing? It's basically you're moving the bend point Look here. You're basically moving the bend point or the balance point. Let's just say, for instance, it's right here. You're moving the bend point towards the butt of the club, and that's what you're doing. So you're either the balance point can be made by adding some more stuff to the back, hence counterbalancing, or you just change the way that it's made in the profile. Now, the way people will do it is they say, well, you can make the club longer and the swing weight's not impacted. That's true. Or they can, or if it's shorter, you just add more weight. Well, then you just blew counterbalancing out of the water. But that's where that one is getting a lot of love right now. As far as the most popular shaft, that's a trend du jour right now. It's funny because the PGA is very, very trendy, right? If they see one guy winning with it, they tend to want, well, is that going to work for me? Is it going my bag? And then you see it starting to pile on. Case in point, Acra. Acra has their TZ line, and it got some acceptance, and it still has acceptance by some very top 10 players. And when they see those guys playing it, and it just takes off, and other people want it, and that goes inside. Right now, as far as mainline numbers or mainline shafts that you're seeing, I think Graphite Design is probably one. You see the orange one that's played out there, and it's not necessarily in the drivers, but a lot in the driving irons. That seems to be a real popular one right there. All right, let's see what else we got here. Oh, they do exist. Okay. Let's see. Went too far. There we go.
You're picking one out of the.
Yeah, I got Scott here. Do you feel that the new distance iron heads are basically extremely similar, and it's the shaft that gives you the best outcome? So distance iron heads. Let's go with that one first. There's basically two different kinds of distance irons right now. You have pure unadulterated distance irons, which the Maverick is, right? The Maverick standard is pure on. Man, that thing is so strong, it's got 3 wedges now as a standard instead of just 2. And so what does that mean? Well, it just means you can go a half-inch shorter and you're in a 6 iron and hit it like you did a 5 right now. Now, what does that do? Well, if you're a guy if distance is your particular desire, then there you go, right? There's nothing wrong with that. I used to buck that. I used to really, really buck that, and that, hit the iron, be done with it. Well, and that was because technology had not followed its claim, and meaning that in the beginning, people were just stamping 5s on or 6s on 5s and handing them to you until you go hit it. Well, that's not the way it's supposed to be. Well, now the supercomputers and all kinds of other things are happening, and so the technology is making it so that the other dog is playing with the ball. that you're getting these very strong lofts, but now you're starting to get the flights that you're getting out of what would have been the stereotypical 7 or 6 or something along that line. And now you may not be getting as much spin because the loft is a little stronger, but you're getting that flight. So now we have to depend on it coming out of the air and stopping versus all that spin. And that's that. And there's that one. Now, the second half is players' distance irons, which I truly believe is the category of the year. Now, the players' distance irons are those distance irons that look like that have less offset that were designed for the guy that was truly, or the gal that was truly the player in the day, but swing speed slowed down, that kind of stuff, and you just want that more distance, but you're really not digging on all that offset, and that could be what you want, right? Dude, found the other ball, and that's what you're looking for, right? So you get the forgiveness because it's bigger, but it's still, some might have the cap on the back. All right, dude, that needs to go. Those balls need to go away. And then, but you get the look of it, right? So you get these players models. Now, everything works in concert. Not just the head is responsible for all that distance. You also have to have the shaft that marries up to your swing. If it doesn't marry up to your swing, then it's like driving a car with one flat tire. It's just not getting there. And so you need to have that married up, not only in weight, which I believe is the most important, and then weight, and then, well, length, obviously, but weight, and then flex, and then you keep going and getting the profile in order for you to be able to maximize what you're doing with that golf club. So they work together, right? They work together. All right. What else we got here?
Nolan.
Oh, we got Sean.
K9 pieces.
K9 piece. I love my 5-wood 215 yard. That's awesome. And I'm thinking about booting the 23 hybrid 195 and getting a 7-wood. No, not really. Sean, what I'll tell you here in this particular one is I have found that golfers tend to gravitate towards one or the other, woods or hybrids. It's a rare bird that can do both well. And if you're hitting the 5-wood and you're just absolutely slaughtering it, then I would stay with the woods. Go to the 7-wood, and you probably end up actually picking up a little yardage. All right, and that's what I would do that. Kurt, how long does it take to do driver fitting? It's about.
I answered him.
Oh, she apparently the wife's already answered you. But for anybody else asking, it's an hour and a half. All right, here we go. All right. Can you recommend an iron shaft for a high swing speed, slow tempo guy that possibly want a higher ball flight and more spin? Well, yeah, here we go. This is a lot of guys will back away saying, well, we really want to see your swing. So when we're talking about high swing speed and slow tempo, meaning that don't let one or the other be exclusive, right? They are not mutually exclusive, meaning that if you're a slow tempo, you can actually go a little more flexible based on your swing speed, because slower tempos mean you're not loading the shaft as hard as you would for a guy that was very aggressive, right? And so you can go that. Now, also another guy that is slower in this tempo, also you may like a slightly lighter shaft. And I don't mean 80 grams or something like that, but in high swing speed, you might be looking at 105, 100, maybe even a 95 gram shaft, right? And you can do that. And if you're into that range, I can certainly the KBS TGI graphite shaft in the 95 maybe. They do have one. Acura makes one in weight categories like that as well. And and you could try something like that. If you like a little bit heavier, from the KBS point of view, they have a C taper 110 or even a tour 105, and they'll promote a medium penetrating ball flight is what I would call. And yes, they would do the spin. All right. How'd you get in club making, and how do you get good to become the best at it? All right. Look at here. We got another club maker. Well done, man. Well done. So how did I get into club making? Well, so here's a story time at McGolf. I was into woodworking big time, and my kids and I coached a lot of baseball, and it was obvious that I wasn't going to be playing very much baseball anymore, and so I was wanting to take up a different sport. Well, some of the guys at work said, "Hey, let's go check out some golf." All right, so I played a little bit of golf. I didn't think it was all that great, but a few years later, I said, "Yeah, I was going to really give it a go," and I started golfing, and I really, really enjoyed the challenge. Now, the other part was both my boys were saw me going to golf, and they're like, "Dad, we want to go golfing." Well, sure, let's go golfing. So I went out like every other parent would do, and I went out and I bought them a kid set for each one because one was older, one was younger. Now, 6 months later, we're out there golfing and we're really getting into it, and they both hit growth spurts. Every one of those days, one of those things where you look at your kid and he's 6 inches taller the next day. It was like that. And all of a sudden we had to go get another set of golf clubs because they were virtually too short. Well, one son is lefty and one son is righty. So I had to start making golf. I started to figure out, man, this is going to get quite get in my wallet here if I'm not real certain about what I want to do. And so a guy mentioned, said, hey, you can build those things. No way. Yeah. So I started investigating it and took my first class at a regional golfsmith. It was a one dayer. And I was like, okay, this is okay, but I really am not, they wouldn't let me cut a shaft. All I could do was glue it together and finish a hosel and put on a grip. And I was like, well, that's not enough. And I mentioned, well, where else? Of course, they wanted me to go to Texas. I said, there's got to be another place. Well, he pulls me aside and mentions Golf Works. The Golf Works, an hour and 45 minutes from here. I said, okay. So I made a few phone calls for them and went up there and I did a 7-day course. It was the Professional Fitting and Repair School. Drove up there and I tore everything apart every day for a week. Everything I had, I tore it apart. I even painted some clubs. And they mentioned the Professional Club Makers Society, the PCS, which was out of Louisville. And I joined that. And it just keeps going on and on and on and on. And so the PCS folded because of some unsavory stuff that was going on. And then I got a phone call. It's like, hey, do you want to start up another group? And the ICG is part of that group. I was part of the steering committee for that group, and now they're out there, and it's international group servicing quite a bunch of people, and a very strong presence in the Asian Rim. Right, is very very strong, and so that's where it's at. So, how do you want to get better? Well, you know what? Practice, and again, there's a video coming where I know on that last one I did with the what's in the drawers when I did some grinding, right? I was wanting to learn how to grind. Went and bought all those old heads, and I just learned how to grind. And the funny, with those things, they're totally rough. And if you look in those heads I was showing you, those are purely polished. They're not dipped or any of that other stuff. Purely polished. That was one of the other things I want to learn is how to polish stuff because of what was going on in Woodwoods at the time. So it was that kind of stuff. The other one is attend some of the schools. There are some in, the Golf Works Academy is probably what's the only one left standing in the U.S. If you're not in the U.S., I believe there's a school in the U.K. and it was Diamond Golf, the group Wishon owns them.
UK?
Yeah.
Golf?
Yeah, Diamond Golf in the UK, they have a course and they will help you out with that kind of stuff. I would check them out as well. All right, what else we got here? Uh, yeah, Matt, height is not going to be an issue with your family. All right.
We've met your family.
Yeah, here we go. Says I want to take a Golf Works course, but I'm 9 hours away from the nearest location. Unlucky. Well, so 9 hours, they do have, you can, much not to promote them so much, but, you can stay overnight. So, and I've done that. I took a master's class up there. I was there and I stayed overnight. The first time I kept driving back and forth, I said, I'm not doing that anymore. And I had some buddies that were up there too, that we were having a good time with the week-long master's class. All right, here we go. Where are we at? All right, we're looking pretty good. What swing weight do you recommend for a wedge when I play the KBS Max 85 D2 and Wilson Staff D5 Grafaway? Handicap is 9. Well, what I like to do, and it's not a hard and fast rule, but as a standard, what I like to see is the swing weights on the wedges just slightly heavier than the irons. I don't mean a lot, just slightly heavier. So if you're D2, maybe a D4, right? And it depends on your swing, but it just slightly heavier. And the idea is because, and again, my opinion, that wedges are made to go down and get underneath of a ball and pop it up. And a slightly heavier swing weight will help you in that determination. Now, there are other people that believe the same, if not lighter in some cases. I don't understand the lighter. I can understand the same. I don't understand the lighter, and I haven't researched it enough just because that if you look at the head weights of wedges, they progressively get heavier in order for, you take off just quarter inches. You've seen the latest trend. You get down to about 35 inches, then it's a quarter inch, quarter inch, quarter inch, quarter inch, quarter inch. But the head weights are climbing heavier, so that you're creating these heavier swing weights as as you're getting more lofted. So just based on the design parameters, I would go just a little bit more than that. All right. Wow. Here's one. This is important. No. The answer is no. I don't have them in there, and it's because Georgia is shut down. They were due in here, but that's where we're at. Let's go back and we'll go through it. Here we go. Do you find aftermarket driver graphite shafts to be appreciably better in performance than even the better no upcharge OEM grade shafts? Okay, David. So in a lot of cases, what we're going to find is in a lot of cases in the drivers anymore, if it doesn't have the exact markings at the aftermarket shaft, chances are it's not the same shaft. That's become, and it's what we call proprietary shaft now. It left being a copy or something significantly lot less to a proprietary shaft that's under a design parameter for that particular head. And so that in order to keep costs down, right? And in order to be able to provide, otherwise these drivers, although they're expensive, would be out of sight. Now, the aftermarket shafts, there are some that are very good and there are some that are not. And it just, again, it all depends on what fits for you. There are some that are known to be, that are known performers, right? Aldala is a known performer. Mitsubishi, a known performer. Acura is a known performer, although they're a little less known than all the rest of them. UST is a known performer. Those are all standard. Graphite Design, Oban, those are all known performers, right? Now what we're seeing is littler companies that are springing up, i.e. the Acras. They're the ones in the lead right now. Ones I've been in talk with is VA Composites. Victor Affable is taking that, and he's got a huge background in this, right? They're just out there, and and most of I would say a very large preponderance of these things are very well made. All right. Here's one. I'll do one more.
What's the difference between the GP MCC aligned grip and the
All right, where's that at?
red grips?
Is that at the very bottom?
From Sweden.
Ah, okay. Sweden gets it again. What's the difference between the Golf Pride MCC aligned green and red grips?
And in the same question, if I want a grip size between
standard and mid-size. Well, let me see. This so happens I'm right here by all the grips.
Good ending.
So
Red.
the aligned grip. Okay.
Do you need a red?
Well, I don't have a red.
He's not asking for a line.
Oh, just the regular ones?
Oh, well, he is asking a line green and red grips.
Okay, so let's talk about the Align. The Align is this technology, okay? The Align is this layered into the grip. It takes place of the ribbed grip, and the ribbed grip kind of gave it an egg flavor shape. So when you grabbed it, it was like grabbing into an oval, okay? And Rob, thank you, buddy. We'll do some more. And so what they did is that they layered this in here and gave it a different texture and a different feel so that you could feel it when you set it in your hands like that. Now, they have the MCC4 green of what you're proposing is an MCC4, and the MCC4, which is like this guy. The MCC4 plus is like this guy. All right, the greens are here, the 4 pluses are here. And the difference is basically right up here. It's more tapered right here, or less, sorry. This is less tapered right here, where this is more tapered. So if you're looking to build up the bottom hand, right, the bottom hand where you're this guy right here, and you want a little bit more meat on it, you would want the MCC4 Plus. If you're like a standard guy, that would be it right there. Effectively, they're pretty much the same. They still got the corded background in the backhand, and if you look, the texture patterns are just a little bit different, but it's still made out of the same kind of rubber. And so that's what that's for. All right, guys, it's been an hour, actually just a couple minutes over, which is about what I wanted to go. And again, thank you for all the visitation, and please let me know what you think in the show notes when you get down in there. Keep asking the questions, and we will, and be sure to come back. And by the fact we had such a great response, I really would like to do this again on the following Monday. We'll just do it once a week, because that way I can still put the videos in there, and we'll do that, right? And so let everybody know it's going to be on Monday at 17:30 or 5:30 p.m. next time frame, and hopefully you guys enjoyed it. And thank you, really, and be safe, right? Just be safe out there, and let's see your scores go low. And thank you, guys.